Okay, so this is our second focus activity for the second 6 weeks. Now, this is the first one last week when Miss Stone was talking to you guys about it. She introduced the idea more is or, less is nest, because we wanted to go ahead and remind you about absolute value inequalities. And some people were really confused about the less is nest because we haven't seen it yet. Well, that's where this focus activity comes in. So if it's a greater than absolute value inequality, that's where the more is or comes in. That tells you that it's a union. So you want to go ahead and break it up like this. So I said 3x minus 12 greater than or equal to 6, or, because more is or, greater than is more, 3x minus 12, and then I did two things. I'm going to switch the inequality symbol, and I'm going to take the opposite of my constant. Okay, remember, this is what you did last week with Miss Stone. Now I'm going to go ahead and focus on less is nest, which is this focus activity. So what's the difference between these problems and the ones we were just talking about? These are less than. So there is a specific way to solve them if it's a greater than or a less than. And to help you remember, it's that rhyme. And it's probably one of the silliest rhymes I think I've ever heard in my life, but it can help you remember what to do. So more is or, less is nest. And it does not matter if it's strictly less than or if it's less than or equal to. So here's what the less is nest means. I'm going to take the expression that I have here between the bars, 3x plus 4. Okay. And I'm going to say less than 10, but I'm going to use the same inequality. It's greater than the opposite of that constant. Okay. It's kind of like I'm going to nest that function between the constant and its opposite. Okay. Like I said, I did not come up with it. I probably would not have used that analogy, but I guess it's the closest thing to less they could come up with. Okay. So less is nest. So I'm going to nest 3x plus 4 between 10 and his opposite, negative 10. Okay, now this one is not a union, this is an intersection. This is going to be based on the word and. Okay, and actually if you go ahead and compare it to the strategy we had yesterday, you are coming up with the same inequalities, but it depends on how you're going to take your answer. Okay, so at the very beginning of the school year, we did see one like this. Okay, this is actually two statements here. You could say negative 10 is less than 3x plus 4, and 3x plus 4 is less than 10. And how we solved it then was to go ahead and break it up and solve the inequalities separately. Hello. Okay. What we're going to do here is just solve all together. Rent. There you go, sir. All right. Now, when you're solving any kind of equation or inequality, whatever you do to one side, you what? Yeah, you want to do to the other. It has to maintain that balance, right? So when I'm solving this, what we call an absolute, or not an absolute, a compound inequality, whatever I do to the middle in order to isolate x, I'm going to be doing to both the left and the right. So my goal is to get x by itself in the middle. So what would I do first? Okay, so I'm going to subtract 4 from the middle, but that means I'm also going to subtract it from the right and the left. I'm just going to keep this guy combined for this one. Okay, so I'm going to have 3x in the middle, negative 10 minus 4, negative 14, and 6. Okay, now I want to get rid of the 3, so I will divide. So I'm going to divide by 3. So in the middle, I'm going to have the x I'm looking for. It's got to be between negative 14 thirds and 2. Now, remember also last time, there was two ways I wanted you to represent your answers, on a number line and also on our interval notation. So let's draw the number line here and my boundaries, negative 14 thirds and 2. Okay. Now remember again, we are getting two statements. We have x is greater than negative 14 thirds, and we also have x is less than 2. So if I'm looking at those individually, there are open circles. I want everything greater than negative 14 thirds and everything less than 2. Now here's the difference. Remember, the greater than are based on the union. You would take everything that you see. But what do you do with an intersection? It's only what they have in common. It's only what they share. So I'm only going to be looking for answers between the two. And you'll notice your graph should mimic what your answer is telling you. All values of x between those boundaries. Okay. So the only values of x that are going to make this a true statement should be between -14/3 and 2, not including them. Okay. How would that look in interval notation? -14/3, comma 2. And how would I cap it? Parentheses, because they're not included. And we can check this very quickly. Choose a value that's not in that interval. Whether it's below -14/3 or above 2. Let's say 10. Okay. So 10 is not in this interval. So it should not make it true. Well, let's see. 3 times 10 will give me 30 plus 4. So the absolute value of 34 is going to be less than 10. And no, that is not true. Okay, but if I go ahead and choose the values from what I got, it's going to make it true. Okay, how are we doing today? Is this starting to come back to you? Okay, when were you guys shown this? Was it Algebra 1? I don't know if you would have been shown this in Algebra 2. I don't know if that's part of the curriculum. Maybe both? Okay, okay. All right. Well, now that we have that, let's take a look at number 2. So more is or, less is nest. This is a less than inequality. So I'm going to say 6r minus 3, what? Okay, is less than or equal to 21. But is greater than or equal to -21. Less is nest. Okay, that's what Ms. Stone was referring to last week. And again, we just go ahead and solve it like we did the previous one. We could break it apart, or we could keep it together. So what's first? Add 3, so -21 plus 3. So -18 would be less than or equal to 6r, which is less than or equal to 21 plus 3, 24. And now we'll divide through. -3 is less than or equal to r, which is less than or equal to 4. We just divided through by 6. Okay, so there we go. Let's represent my answers graphically. So -3 and 4. Okay, closed this time because we are going to include them. And we want every value of r between them. What would it look as an interval notation? Parentheses? Bracket. -3, 4. There we go. Okay. All right. Good. Good, good. Okay. And this problem just reminds me of something different. I'm going to kind of segue into it because the variable is r. They are going to be making another Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but apparently this one is going to be more intense. So it's going to be rated ARG. Because it's a pirate movie. No, I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, I think that's what this world needs right now is another Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. Well, you know, I will say I wasn't a big fan of On Stranger Tides, the one with the mermaids. But the last one, The Dead Men Tell No Tales, that was actually pretty decent. I kind of like that one. I don't know. I guess you could say I'm hooked. So. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on. Okay, so just a couple of things really quickly before I go ahead and get you guys working on something. Remember, if you're in need of a waiver for the first 6 weeks, those are due to Marcia Edwards by 10 a.m. on Friday. We are going to have our tornado drill tomorrow during second period. So anyone who does not know where we would go if there was a severe weather threat in third period? Everybody knows where we would go? Okay, that is absolutely wrong. Okay, you don't want to run outside in a tornado. You know, see my fingers with the little legs as you dangle away. Yeah, I think y'all got that analogy. Okay. But don't forget, there's the quiz tomorrow on inverses. Okay, so I will be here in the morning if anybody has any questions. Your first exam is going to be roughly a week and a half on Monday the 8th. Okay, so we're going to be looking ahead to that. We will absolutely start trig tomorrow. All right, so unless there's any questions, I'm going to go ahead and get you guys on your assignment. Okay.